After what seemed like an eternity, motorsport returned to Melbourne last weekend with the running of the Victorian Historic Racing Register's Historic Sandown meeting. Spectator numbers were severely limited and competitors from interstate were few and far between, but despite all this, over 200 cars entered for the event. Apart from the obvious opportunities to wallow in nostalgia, historic racing provides an ingredient increasingly rare in the world of modern motorsport: variety. The paddock's full of cars, not necessarily famous, not necessarily fast, but always fascinating. This mini sports sedan may never have featured on posters in bedrooms all over the land, but it's an interesting car nonetheless. Owner-driver Adrian Reid spoke with Doc about the car and its history.
Well, we bought it in 2017, I think from memory, at the end of 17. Originally it was built in New South Wales as a super mini, and yeah, it's good that it survived probably since then, because it has had a few owners, and we've resurrected it. Yeah,
big rejuvenation here, and it's not just cosmetic. What's inside there? It's a bit of a rare one too.
Yep, so it is a space frames, which means it's the floor pan has been removed, and it's a full chassis. The engine is still A series. It is got a lot of mini still on it, so we still call it a mini.
It looks like one anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, we did a lot of work when we got it. The car had some pretty poor workmanship, based on when it was built in the 80s. We wanted to go fast, so we developed it and put all the right bits to try and achieve that.
What do you have to do to upgrade a little 1300? I think I can see some of the parts that are surrounding it are bigger than just the engine block on top there. Yeah, the head.
So it is turbocharged. Originally logbooked as a turbo mini, so I wanted to keep that configuration. It's got some modern stuff on it which you wouldn't have got back in the 80s. It's got a dog box in it now. It's got competition clutch, 7-port head on it from the USA. That was sort of it's come from the 8-port era of the 60s that they used to run on the rally cars. This is a 7-port, so it is a little bit different. Valve configuration is different. Well, same as a Mini, but different to 8-port. So yeah, now it is fuel injected and full engine management, which was the pre-COVID my hobby, my project.
I was going to say, you had a little bit of time on your hands in the last year or two as well, though, too. A few little upgrades. And, yeah, she looks... wheel arches as well, that came with it, cosmetically?
Yeah, the body is still as it was raced in the 80s. The flares, the fiberglass front is what we call a Golson front, so it was made by a guy up in Queensland. So yeah, the flares, the fiberglass, the boot lid, all that is from the original car still, and the body shell. But yeah, just the upgrades, the EFI, just to make it more reliable, and we can, modify it very easily without sort of chasing our tail.
Excellent. Now a little bit about yourself. How long you've been racing, and what else have you raced before with Mini? What did you have?
No, I've always, Dad's raced Minis since the 60s, so naturally I was going to take in them footsteps. So I started driving a Mini. Actually, I first learnt here in the car park out the side here, in a Clubman GT we still own, and I was 5 years old. Dad, I don't know what we were actually doing there.
I was going to say, you were just steering the wheel, he changed the gears for it.
Yeah, I think we came down for a look, and then I actually jumped in the seat and drove that car that day. And then from then I said, yeah, right, I need to do this.
Hooked.
Yeah. So I started driving hill climbs and dirt at Mafra. Don't really call it a hill climb, but, flat track sort of work. And then I started doing sprints in a Mini that I built from bits out the back that Dad had laying around. Still had a 1275 engine in it. I then developed that car with slicks onto it, and then started racing, which raced the same year this car first had a logbook, 1989. I was in that race at the Doug Byrne Memorial race that's every year at Winton, the Ken Lee Memorial Round is called at Winton in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, all goes good.
It was meant to be then, back in 1989 as well.
Well, to buy the car back after that long, it's pretty good for it to be back, and it's as much as the colour scheme is a little bit different. It was white with orange and red on it, but it is the original car.
What do you think about Sandown Historics and getting back racing again?
Yeah, I love Sandown as a track. It's not the best mini track, obviously, because we struggle with speed a little bit, but I love Sandown. It's a good track for just getting and going, all high speed, which is what we try and do.
Any plans for the car in the future, or racing on what circuits in the future for the next 6-12 months?
Yeah, we wanted to do some development, obviously today. That's why, as much as my category, because it is a sports sedan, there is no sports sedans at Sandown today, but I'm running with A and C in the sprint class. The plan is we're going to do another couple of rounds at the end of the year, and then do the East Coast Super Mini Challenge next year, which is 5 meetings over the whole year. 1 in Queensland, 2 in New South Wales, 1 in South Australia, and then the Kenley again in Winton in December normally.
Good on you, Adrian. It's great to look at this. As I said, a great little gem here. Great fun to watch, and they're absolute fun flogging him as well, though, too. And good luck for the rest of the weekend here at Historic Sandown, and have fun out in the track and enjoy yourself. Thanks, Adrian, for joining us on In Pit Lane.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Feature of local historic racing is the chance to see what are called Australian specials. See, not everyone had the budget for a new Ferrari, Maserati or Jaguar D-Type back in the day, so in the true spirit of Aussie backyard ingenuity, people just sort of built their own, using whatever bits and pieces they could acquire to have a car that not only could race with the famous European marques, but in some cases actually beat them. Cars like the Aljon Special, owned and driven by Angelo Di Donato.
Well, it's a special that was made not far from here in Pulpit Road in Dandenong in 1959, 1960. Actually raced here in Sandown back then as well with Bill Lord Milnes, and he had a local Renault and Peugeot dealership. And on Friday nights, Derek Smith and Richie Hellier, the mechanics, would build race cars, and this is number 1 of about 7 that they built.
So I was really surprised when it came past. I said to the guys here, I said, it looks like it might be I don't know, a Volkswagen special or something. Then I have a look in the back. There's a bloody big V8 in the back of this thing.
There is. It's the old Y block out of a custom line, so a 272 custom line, but it is going into a Beetle gear transaxle.
Well, I was partially right.
Yes, and running Peugeot front end. When Bill had it had a Peugeot motor. But then there was a guy by the name of Jack Skipper. He put the Y block in it out of his Allard.
So where did you find the car?
In a shed in Yamurka, and it was in pretty bad disrepair. And then it took me about 4 months to work out what it was. We didn't know what the car was. And then after that, I bought it.
So how is it with cars like this? I suppose this is what you call sort of your classic Australian special. How hard is it? I mean, we know that the VHRR and the Australian historic racing scene very, very strict in terms of their protocols in making sure that the cars have the real provenance. How did you sort of go on that? I suppose detective run and find out all this information.
It helped when I found Derek Smith, the original builder. He's still with us and at Sandown today as well. So once we got him and some previous people that had owned it in the 70s that had done nothing with it, it was pretty easy to follow what cams required.
So what category are you running here this weekend?
I like to run regularity. It is a Group M car. But yeah, I like the regularity style where you nominate the car, the time, and especially at Sandown when it just starts raining for no reason.
So what's it like to drive?
It's an awesome bit of kit. We've had it up to about 115 mile an hour today or this weekend. So it's a quick, nimble car.
So what are the plans for? I suppose with international cars, with cars like the Ferraris and the Lotus and all of those cars, you've got something in terms of their value. You've got something to base it on. I mean, this is utterly unique. And so, how do you put a value on a car like this?
For me, it's just personal. I just wanted to bring it back to life. I saw it there and I thought, no, it needs a second chance. And we spoke with Jack Skipper on the weekend. We visited him at his home not long ago, a couple of days ago, and his eyes just lit up as soon as he saw it.
Well, it's fabulous. I mean, my eyes certainly lit up when I saw it because, as I said, we've done so many of these over the years. You have a look around and there's nothing. Well, I mean, there's nothing new by nature, but I mean, there's things you haven't seen before. And when you see something you haven't seen before, you get very excited. I was excited about this. Thanks for telling us all about it, and good luck for the rest of the weekend. But for now, Angelo, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
While the Aljon Special was powered by a Ford V8, the most popular power plant for the Aussie Special was the venerable Holden Straight 6. This striking example is the Prad 5, inspired by Italy, built in New South Wales, and now raced here at Sandown by Shane Bowden.
Well, Brett, it was imported as a HRG, open-wheeler Bathurst model in 1948 by Tony Gaze for Brown and Duray Motors, and as like most HRGs with rock-hard suspension, it was pretty dangerous, and was bought by a guy called Bill Clark in New South Wales, and he won the 1954 Bathurst 100 on handicap as an open-wheeler. Then Jack Pryor and Clive Adams, so Pryor and Adams Prad, they bought it, put a grey Holden in it and TC gearbox, won a few C-grade races. Then they decided it wasn't quick enough as an open-wheeler, so in 1958 they built it into a sports car, and that's how I've got it. I've owned the car since 1975, but it's only been back on the track since 2007. So yeah, it's an interesting car to drive. It's got Jack Pryor designed the independent front suspension using standard components and leaf spring and Holden wishbones, TC gearbox, TC rear axle with a Holden diff centre, and yeah, we've slowly been going faster and faster. But I think that's about it for the car and the driver now. We managed to qualify third today, but yeah, I think that's about it for the car.
It's a very striking looking car. I mean, it looks, it wouldn't look out of place anywhere in sort of, like in the time coming out of Italy or something like that. Or is that just because it's red?
Yeah, well, yeah. It was originally green, but when it came to Melbourne in 1965, it was that Moroni colour, so I've kept it that. But Stan Brown, the expat Englishman, used to work for Lotus, building aluminium bodies. He built the body, and about 90% of the body is original. And he said the body was only designed to last for 5 years, not for 60 years. And he built it from a photo of a Testarossa Ferrari, so he had that on the wall, and then he said, "Oh well, this is what we did." He was a real craftsman. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful bit of kit. You mentioned the grey Holden motor. For people who are not aware of the sort of lineage of Australian, six-cylinder Holdens, a lot of people heard of the red motor. What's the specifications of the grey?
Oh well, yeah, it's original FJ type motors. The first Holden motor. Siamese ports. It's never designed to be, a race motor. The original, I think had about 50 horsepower originally, but the last time it was on the dyno, we got 186 out of it this time.
That's not bad for a grey motor.
No, it's pretty good for a grey motor without a Repco crossflow head. Yeah. But it's got a lot of torque. It's got a flat torque curve and about 160 foot-pounds of torque, so it's very easy car to drive, especially in the wet with the long wheelbase. Sends you a telegram when it's sliding, and very easy to drive in the wet.
What category are you running here this weekend?
This is JK and LB. My car's an LB, which is basically post-war up to December 1960. So, yeah, it encompasses all sorts of cars. Front engine specials, rear engine Coopers, as behind me here, and sports cars, open wheelers. Yeah, it's a bit of run what you brung, because factory race cars weren't generally available in the 50s, and Jack Pryor and Clive Adams, so like most people, they built a series of specials. Mine's Prad 4 and Prad 5, so it's two cars, but it's represented as Prad 5 now. They made 13 in total up until Clive died a few years ago, just before his 100th birthday. So Ian Adams, his son, who used to race 5,000 and a Lotus 23 in the 70s, so I still speak with them. They're fabulous family. There's just back in 2009, I took it up to Taree to show Clive. He was crawling around it. He's a well-known Seventh-day Adventist and never smiles. You've never seen a photo of him smiling. And he had a wry grin on his face, and he turned to me and he said, "Car didn't look this good when I had it."
Well, it looks fantastic now, and we saw it yesterday when we did the live stream. It was the first car we came across, and I thought that's a really lovely looking car, and we have to come back and find out more about it. Great to see it out on the track. Good luck over the rest of the weekend, and good luck for the future. Hopefully we'll see you in the early part of next year in March down at Phillip Island again.
You will indeed, Brett. Thank you.
Jaguar was once a mainstay of motorsport around the world. 7-time winners of Le Mans and many other major championships, including the Australian Touring Car Championship, Jaguar were once again well represented at Historic Sandown. This beautiful Mark 7 has an interesting local history and an owner with quite an interesting background with the marque itself. Well, one of the interesting cars here at the Historic Sandown for 2021 is a magnificent Jaguar. And Chris, can you tell us about this car and its history?
Yes, the car was rebuilt as a racer by its former owner, a chap called John Tupikoff, who lives up near Brisbane. And he took a very, very nice existing standard car and very competently did what's necessary to make it go around a circuit.
So exactly what has been done to it from the standards? What are the differences between a standard Mark 7 and this car?
Well, it's had better brakes fitted. It has had slightly smaller, slightly wider and stronger wheels with better tyres. They're actually Jaguar XJ6 tyres. And then it's been lowered a little bit and much better adjustable shock absorbers fitted. And engine-wise, it's been relatively mildly tuned, but it does develop more horsepower than a standard car would. And it has had a slightly better all-synchromesh, still Jaguar, gearbox fitted to it in place of the relatively clunky 1950s gearbox. Yeah.
Now, I notice that the car is road registered on club plates here, and does it see much use on the general roads?
No, I actually have another Mark 7 Jaguar which is completely standard and automatic, and I tend to use that one on the road and just take this one out occasionally to give it an airing, but it's mainly gets used for events like this.
Now, you've got quite a history with Jaguar, haven't you, and particularly with this sort of car. Tell us about that.
Yes, I have. I started racing old saloon cars in the UK in 1979. And eventually in 1989 I got the opportunity to buy a racing Mark 7 Jaguar from a chap who was local to me. So I bought that and raced that for a couple of years, and then I briefly raced a Jaguar, a Mark 10 Jaguar. That was quite an experience. And later on I was invited to co-drive a Jaguar Mark 7, which took part in longer races, 1 hour races. Along with the owner. I did that right up until I came out here to Australia 5 years ago. And when we arrived in Australia, I had no intention at all of getting involved in racing, let alone old cars. But these two Jaguars, actually, I always say that they found me rather than I found them. And we were house sitting originally when we arrived. We hadn't got round to buying a house yet, and before I even managed to buy a house, I had managed to buy 2 Jaguars. So,
now, what was the response from the wife?
Well, fortunately, I mean, we've been married over 40 years, and she is very, very understanding, so I'm very lucky in that respect. Yeah.
So obviously we've had a bit of a break for a while. I mean, what's it like to get back on the track this weekend at Sandown?
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. My social life consists of a mixture of old car events, both on track and off track, and a bit of music on the side, And doing none of that was extremely painful. So to get back outside, to get on the track, to meet all the guys, to see all the cars again, absolutely wonderful, yeah.
Now, you mentioned music there. Can you tell us, do you play music? Is that your involvement in music?
Oh, well, yes. When I was in the UK, I got involved in what you might call traditional music, folk music, and learned to play the tin whistle and the concertina, not at the same time, of course. And when I came over here, I went to a folk festival and got roped in by the local folk music organisation. So between the meeting that we have once a week, where we all sit round and play together, we also have a couple of sessions in people's houses during the week, So I could have 3 music sessions and 3 or 4 car-related events every week. And as I say, going from that to nothing was extremely hard, yeah. But all that's starting up again, I'm very pleased to say.
Well, I must say, when we managed to get back in the studio on Channel 31 on In Pit Lane, we have music, live music every week. Perhaps we could get you in and get you and some of the guys in and hear some of your music.
Oh, that would be a great pleasure. Yeah, we'd love to do that.
Okay, Chris, good luck for the rest of the weekend. But for now, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
The 2021 Historic Sandown had a bit of everything. Great weather, flooding rain, and plenty of great on-track action. Once again, historic touring cars provided large fields, with John Bowe joining in the fun in Joe Collegia's Mustang. As John told us during In Pit Lane's live and exclusive Pit Walk live stream on our Facebook page, it was a very welcome return.
Well, it's just nice to be here amongst car people. I really miss it. So it's lovely to be here. And I always say to Joe, you drive what you want to drive, and I'll have what's left over. So this weekend,
Good to have friends like that.
Yeah, it is fantastic. No, we've had some great times together. And he didn't want to drive the Mustang this time. He wanted to drive this because he's only had this a while. He's had it for several years, but it was in America. So I got the Mustang. So the Mustang's great. The boys have totally like Grandpa's axe. It's got new everything. They've done a great job with it. And it's going quite well, really. They just, those old 70s, 60s touring cars are a bit of a handful, but it's a good one.
John celebrated his return with 3 wins and a brand new Group N lap record. But the final race did see the weekend's most frightening accident involving the Mustang of Andy Clempson. Clempson went straight on, speed undiminished, into the Dandenong Road runoff area, sending photographers and spectators ducking for cover in a shower of gravel and broken glass. Officials were quickly on the scene to attend to the driver, and in a testimony to the safety of the cars, the circuit, and the hard work of the officials, Clempson survived the huge crash. They're calling right now, attention in the paddock, because next week is our final show for 2021. So be tuned in next week on the program, and we're going to sort of wrap up the year for what it was. Formula One, supercars, whatever we can sort of talk about, we're going to talk about next week. Anything and everything. As we do. Okay, Doc, thanks for joining us on the weekend. Thanks for
Brett. It's great to be back. Great. How good is this? Wish we could do it every day of the week.
Well, I won't go that far because I'm not.
It just feels like it right now.
It feels like every day of the week right now. Listen, thank you for joining us. I hope we'll see you again next week on the final edition of In Pit Lane for 2021. Remember, we're hoping to come back in 2022. That will, of course, depend on things like sponsorship. If you would like to talk to us about sponsoring In Pit Lane for season 2022, with the return of the Australian Grand Prix to Grand Prix City, Melbourne, and the return of In Pit Lane to the RMITV studios, then please contact us via advertise@InPitLane or via the In Pit Lane Facebook page or the YouTube channel. But until we see you next week, or if you're going to tune in right now to see us on Full Course Yellow, you'll be there, won't you?
Oh, I'll break a leg. That's how you say in show business. Be there or be square. We'll be there.
Okay, we'll see you straight after. If you flick over right now onto the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, you can watch us live on Full Course Yellow. But until we see you next week on In Pit Lane on Channel 31, thank you for joining us. Bye for now.